Now, you're in recovery from an eating disorder or compulsive exercise, and you have a really hard time taking rest days, or maybe you feel like you need to exercise in order to deserve food, or vice versa. As soon as you eat food, you feel like you need to exercise in order to burn it off. Well, if this is you, or if any part of what I just described is you, you're in the right place, because in this video I'm going to be explaining why you have such a hard time taking rest days, how you can make it easier to take rest days, and I'm going to be sharing my own personal story with exercise addiction, how my compulsive exercise played into my eating disorder, and stick around until the very end because I'm going to be giving some expert tips on how to make rest days seamless, what you can do on rest days, and all that good stuff so you can live your life without feeling like you have to exercise and without tying conditions to eating, because life is so much more than being obsessed with how much you move and how much you exercise. I mean, come on. So first of all, why is it so hard to take rest days, and why do you feel this urge to exercise and this urge to move? Well, that has everything to do with the adapted flee famine theory by Shan Geisinger. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, or if those words sound like some sort of weird language to you, I highly recommend you watch my latest video on comparison in eating disorder recovery, which dives deep into the theory and why we compare while we are recovering from an eating disorder. But in short, the adapted flee famine theory basically states what the title is: anorexia, or restrictive eating disorders, and eating disorders that involve compulsive exercise, because anorexia does not always involve compulsive exercise, but in 80% of people with anorexia, compulsive exercise is a component. The theory states that restrictive eating disorders are an adapted response to flee famine. This means that when your body perceives that you are in a scarce environment, or a famine environment where there's not enough food, and this can be caused by dieting or simply not eating enough calories, but also restricting yourself in other ways, such as maybe restricting certain food groups, or restricting your self-care, or restricting the times that you eat, or the amount of food you eat. You know, there's so many different types of restriction that it goes far beyond dietary. And exercise, too much exercise, can also play a role in this. Maybe you're eating enough food for your body, but if you are over-exercising to compensate that, and if your body is asking for more energy than you are giving it, that is also restricting. So if any of these forms of restriction apply to you, or any kind of restriction, that means you're in an energy deficit and your body thinks that there's a food scarcity, a food famine. For most people, if they sense famine, they will either eat more food or hibernate. That's just biology. But people with the genes for anorexia, or genes for restrictive eating disorder, it sparks something else, and it sparks a migration response. And what this migration response means is that if your body thinks there's not enough food here where you are right now, it thinks you have to migrate to where there is enough food, so a land where there is enough food. So that's where this biological drive to move comes from, and that's why people with eating disorders and people who do not eat enough food often feel this compulsive urge to move, because your body biologically thinks that you are trying to migrate. And it's very interesting because there have been several studies that have proven this migration theory, and one of them is in rats. So when scientists starved rats in a lab, what they actually noticed was that these rats started showing behaviors and symptoms that were the same behaviors and symptoms that occur in people with restrictive eating disorders. So what happened was the rats became underweight because the scientists purposely starved them, and they restricted the amount of time that the rats had access to food. And what they noticed in these rats is that at a certain point, when they reached a certain weight, the rats started ignoring the food that was given to them and actually ran themselves to death in their little spinning wheels, which is very, very identical to what happened with someone with anorexia. Now, similar results occurred in the Minnesota starvation experiment that ended in 1945 that was led by Ansel Keys, a researcher who wanted to figure out what was the best way to get post-war survivors back to healthy nutrition. So in the study, he starved a whole load of healthy men that had no history of mental issues, no family history of depression or any kind of eating issues. What happened with these men when they were starved down to 75% of their ideal body weight, is that these men also started to show signs that are overlapping with those of people with restrictive eating disorders and anorexia. So these men started hoarding cookbooks. They became obsessed with looking at food and looking at pictures of food. Think about Instagram and your Explore page and watching what I eat in a day videos. So if you're obsessed with those things, you're probably not eating enough food. But another thing that these men did, which was remarkable and supports this exercise response in people that restrict their food intake, is that these men started pacing, and they wanted to walk everywhere, and they could never sit still. Now, it seems very, very paradoxical if you're malnourished and you have less energy, that you would start to become more hyperactive and want to move more. But if you look at it from a migration point of view, it makes a ton of sense, because your body is telling you you need to move because it wants to get you to the abundant lands. Now that I've touched on the why you have such hard time taking rest days and why you feel this compulsive urge to exercise, I thought I'd just share a little bit of my own journey with exercise addiction and compulsive exercise, and how I got over that, and how I can now exercise in a way that feels good and just enjoy joyful movement. So basically, it's a really long story, and I have a ton of articles on my blog that really dive deep into my whole history. So if you don't know that much about me and my story, I highly recommend you check out the My Story page on my blog. I'll link that below. And if you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. And if you're liking this video so far, please give it a big thumbs up. It really supports me and motivates me to create this kind of free content for you guys, because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to serve you, and I appreciate you guys, and I want to show you guys that healing from an eating disorder is not as hard as it may seem to be. So basically, my eating disorder, it started as very innocent, as all eating disorders do, and it was around when I was 11 years old. I started running with my parents. So I have always been a very athletic kid, and I felt it was always part of my identity. I grew up playing soccer. I grew up doing gymnastics. I knew how to ride a bicycle when I was 3 years old because I'm Dutch. I mean, do you expect anything else? But anyways, I was always a very athletic kid, and I was even born, like, we have this picture of me as a baby that I was, like, literally just born, and I was actually, like, kicking my legs in, like, bicycle crunch motion. So that's always the joke in our family, that my legs were kind of meant to move. So when I was 11, that's also around the time I started restricting my food intake due to a lot of different factors. But I started running with my parents, and this was on top of my other sports that I was doing. So as an 11-year-old kid, that was a lot of exercise, and it started as something really innocent, like, oh my god, look at Olivia, she's running, and she's playing soccer, and she's doing gymnastics, what an active kid, like, how incredible, like, she's so passionate about health and all these things. Yeah, well, it started out as innocent, and it quickly grew into something very compulsive, and this also links back to my autism, which I made a video about, because at one point, with the exercise and the eating food, and eating certain foods and having to have a certain amount of exercise, it kind of became this ritual and routine that I became trapped in. And at one point, it wasn't even that I needed to exercise, but I needed to exercise because it was part of my daily routine, and I needed every day to be the same. Being a small person that I am, like, I'm barely 5 feet, you guys, and I've always been the smallest in my class and been the lightest. And with my fast metabolism, I was that girl who could eat whatever she wanted and not gain weight. So when I did start to add runs to my lifestyle, and every day at that, and started eating healthier and cutting out all the sweets that I was basically living off as a kid, I lost a couple pounds, and these couple pounds were enough to send me in an energy deficit, which I believe sparked that anorexia gene in me and caused my eating disorder to really spiral. Obviously, my parents noticed after a while, like, she's always tired, like, she has no energy and she's not eating enough. So they brought me to the hospital, to the doctor at first, the doctor in the hospital. It was like a specialist. After I had been diagnosed with anorexia when I was 11, and I immediately had to get admitted to the hospital because my heart rate was too low. And that first hospital admission was kind of pretty much the start of the exercise ban I now had put on me. I had to gain weight. I was underweight, I was malnourished. I could only exercise again once I had gained that weight. And obviously I didn't want to gain the weight because I had an eating disorder and my whole life was focused on numbers and eating as little food as possible and exercising. So when I wasn't allowed to exercise, I mean, I held this up for maybe a couple months, but at some point it was like, what the heck, like I can't do this. So I started exercising secretly, and this became worse as the years progressed and as I learned all the ways in which I could incorporate exercise into my life without anyone knowing. I remember when we moved to a new house, when we lived in Boston back then, it was, I think that was in 2012. I'm not sure. But anyways, I would, every day would come home from school and I'd close my door and I'd say, guys, no one come in because I'm going to be doing yoga for an hour because I am so anxious and yoga helps me calm down. Well, honestly, the only reason I was anxious was because I knew I had to fit a secret workout in. So I'd close my door and I'd say I'd be doing yoga for an hour, and I was like, no one come in because you'll interrupt my practice and you'll interrupt my meditative state. Well, everyone knew that was not true, but they didn't know what to do about it. So I would go in there and for an hour I'd just try and fit in the most intense workout that I could think of. I'd look up like hardest leg workouts on YouTube and I'd do as many push-ups as I could, and I would like literally like do stuff on my phone while holding a plank. Like it was insane. Like thinking back to that time, I'm like, oh my goodness. But anyways, when we moved to the Netherlands then in 2016, I hoped for a new start, and I hoped that because I had built up so much trauma in my bedroom because I associated my bedroom no longer with like a room where I kind of could go to relax, but I associated my bedroom with, as soon as I'm here, I need to exercise, I need to work out. It was almost like not even a choice anymore. It was like as soon as I entered that room, there was this switch that clicked in my head that was like, you can't sit still in here. So my room became very traumatic for me. So when we moved here, I really hoped that a new environment would kind of take that away. But obviously, like a change of location is not going to change how you think mentally. I mean, it starts mentally. It's so often that we look for external things to make us feel better. Well, in the end, it's all about what's in here. What's in here's got to change, and what's in here's got to change before anything else can change. So when we moved to the Netherlands, the exercise actually got worse, and it got worse in the clinic that I was admitted to because they really did not do anything to kind of like pay attention to their patients. So I would exercise in the bathrooms and I'd exercise in the bedroom, and as soon as like the staff would like go into the meeting room, I could literally just like exercise in the hallways and they had no idea. So after 4 months, I was discharged and they were like, you know, we don't know why you're not gaining weight. We're just gonna have to accept the fact that you're never gonna get better. You're never gonna get better. You're never gonna get better. So obviously that was a really hard blow to me as a 15-year-old that was very vulnerable and very sick. For a psychologist to say that to you was actually, that is the reason why I do the work that I do today, is because I know that those words, maybe not those exact words, but I'm not the only one who's been told they were never going to get better. But look at me now, look at me now, look at me here. I am inspiring you guys. I'm on Instagram making reels every day, so if you have not checked them out and don't follow me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram at Live Label Free. I just love inspiring you guys and connecting with you guys there. So also that's where most of my questions come in. If you guys ever have topic requests, you can just send me a DM, slide into those DMs. Where was I? Oh yeah, so after that psychologist said that to me when I was 15 years old, it was pretty much a downhill spiral from there. I would go running every single day because I was like, you know, if I'm not going to get better, if there's no hope for me, what's the point in even trying to recover anymore? Running became my outlet, and I don't even understand how I like did not pass out on those runs. And to be honest, like I went to bed every night thinking, well, wondering, am I going to wake up tomorrow? Like that was honestly a fear of mine, but I did, and I'm here now. But at one point the running just became so bad and the restriction became so bad, and I had panic attacks every single day at one point, and this was in 2017, and I knew what it was doing to me, but it was also really affecting my family, and I could not see them go through that pain anymore, so I knew something had to change. So in mid-2017, so in July 4th of 2017, I flew to Carolina House, and I wrote a blog post on that too, which I will link below. It's called why I flew 4,000 miles for treatment, because obviously I live in the Netherlands and I went to treatment in North Carolina, USA. And again, thank you so much to everyone who made that possible, because without everyone who donated to my GoFundMe campaign and helped us raise $80,000 for me to go to treatment in another country, I probably wouldn't be here today. So again, if you're watching this and you contributed, thank you so much. You have no idea how much gratitude I feel for you. Anyways, when I went to Carolina House, first day, that was really the start of my recovery, and with that, the start of my rest, the start of my long period of rest from exercise, from compulsive exercise. So I was there for 6 months, and 6 months of literally not doing anything. Like the first 3 months in residential, I was literally sitting on my ass all day, just eating all the food. At one point, my meal plan was like more than 6,000 calories a day, and I'm not even joking you. Like, we had to add a ton of like supplements and like Cliff Bars, and like, because it just wasn't even possible to like fit more food on my meal plan. It was like truly insane. And I was not exercising at the time. Like, I was purely resting. So first 3 months, I was not doing anything, and then after 3 months, I had hit a healthy weight, so I was allowed to like go on walks, but these walks were like 15 minutes a day, you guys, and it was like the kind of walking that you like do to the grocery store and in the grocery store, and the kind of walking that you do throughout the house, and maybe a walk around the block, but it was nothing more than that. And then when I came home in 2018, I took another 6 months off of exercise because I was pretty scared of like what would happen if I would start exercising again, because I had just gone through this whole life transformation. Like, I had gained over 40 pounds in treatment, which was very, very necessary, and I was very scared of what exercising or like engaging in what used to be behaviors would spark. And honestly, I didn't feel like exercising yet, so I didn't, and I took rest. This whole period of like not doing anything, taking like complete rest, this lasted an entire year, and I'm still alive, so proof that taking a rest from exercise will not kill you, and in fact, it will make you stronger. Cue the Kelly Clarkson music. After it had been a year, and I'm saying a year roughly, like obviously I did not count 365 days on my calendar and then decide this, but at one point I did feel like I was ready to start incorporating movement back into my life, because I wanted to feel strong again. Like, I'm not saying I didn't feel strong, like I'm not saying I felt weak, because nothing makes you feel weaker than not eating food does. Because let's be real, we need food for energy. It's literally the definition of a calorie is energy. So I wanted to feel strong in my body. I wanted my muscles to feel strong, because I did miss that athletic part of me, because I still did identify as an athlete. But the main reason why I also was not exercising yet was because I was scared that I wouldn't be as good as I had been before, because I mean, I took such a long break from like movement in general that I was really scared I would not be strong enough, that I would have no more endurance, and that I would just be a huge failure. But at one point I was like, you know, why is this holding me back? Like, I want to move and I want to feel strong again. So that's also around the time that I started at a new school, and this new school was biking distance away. And here in the Netherlands, we bike everything. Like, I still don't have a driver's license, and I'm 21. So the school, it was a 20-minute bike ride away. So I started by just taking bike rides to school, and it was just really nice to just get my body moving again. And then it was one point where I also just wanted to move like in an athletic way again, I guess. So in late 2018, so in September of 2018, I joined my first ever gym, which was really scary because, I mean, when you are at a gym for like the first time and you've never been to a gym, like, it is so awkward because you feel like everyone's looking at you, but like really they're not. So if you're looking into joining a gym and you feel like you're ready for that, don't be afraid of what other people think of you, because everyone is so focused on themselves. But anyways, yeah, so that's how I kind of reincorporated exercise back into my life. And this video is getting quite long, so I'm not going to get too far into that. And you can, by the way, read my entire blog post, How I Healed My Relationship with Exercise. I'll link that below too. Yeah, a lot of blog posts for you guys, but I mean, I've written a lot, so there's a lot of information out there. Now I do just want to get into those tips that I promised you in the beginning of this video on how to make rest days easier, and my recommendations and thoughts on exercise in recovery. For me, taking that complete stop from exercise really was very, very key to healing my relationship with food. So I recently made a Reels video, so again, follow me on Instagram if you don't yet. I recently made a Reels about fitness influencers who promote this idea of healthy eating and being fit while they clearly struggle with disordered eating, because I truly believe that in order to heal your relationship from exercise, you cannot do that by exercising. A lot of the times there's doctors out there and therapists that may recommend exercise to you or to their patient once they reach a certain weight, but I feel like this is very dangerous, and this is when it's your responsibility to advocate for yourself if you know that exercise is not yet a right thing to do for you. Imagine how crazy it would be if a doctor said to you, if exercise was still a way in which you purge, you still had a really unhealthy relationship with exercise. Imagine if a doctor said to you, go purge 3 times a week for a moderate amount of time. Like, that sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But like, because exercise is so praised in our society now, it can be very easily disguised as a disordered relationship with food. So in recovery, I do recommend taking a complete stop from exercise, and this is very critical to rewiring those neural pathways that have been created in your brain that connect food to exercise. Because for me, I could only eat once I exercised, and I could only eat if I felt like I could burn it off afterwards. But food should not have conditions, because recovery isn't about just gaining weight. Of course you can gain weight while exercising. Hell, you can gain weight while running a marathon. As long as you're eating more calories than you're burning, of course you can gain weight. But recovery isn't just about gaining weight. It's about so much more than that. It's about a shift in mental state. It's about eating without fear. It's about eating without conditions. It's about being able to eat without thinking how you're going to burn it off or use it in any other way. So it is really, really key in order to rewire those neural pathways that have been created in your brain to disconnect food from exercise. To disconnect exercise from food. And to do this, you have to stop exercising so you can really evaluate what role exercise can play in your life. And I know this can be really hard, so my tip for you when it comes to taking rest days is not calling them rest days anymore and actually reframing that thought of rest days and calling them recovery days. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I am so passionate about reframing. I just feel like that is so critical. It's that idea of seeing a glass as half full or half empty. I mean, if you look at it half empty, it's like sad because it's so negative. But if you look at the glass as half full, I mean, it sounds so much better, and it's the exact same thing, but because you're just giving it a different name, it has a different connotation, it just can completely transform the way you look at that. So I think it goes the same as rest days, is instead of calling them rest days, I recommend calling them recovery days. And the reason I do this is because rest sounds very passive, and when you do struggle with compulsive exercise and constantly feeling like you need to be productive, rest and words that are passive can be very hard to deal with, because I mean, we want to be on, we don't want to be passive, we want to be active, we want to be go, go, go. But when you shift the word rest and you change it to recovery day, recovery is an active word because you're actively recovering. So just by that small tweak in wording can be really, really helpful. So once I started using the word recovery day, it just made it a lot easier for me. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be completely honest. Like, of course, in the beginning, not exercising and resting and eating and resting is going to be very hard. It was very, very anxiety inducing for me. I felt jittery. I felt like, oh my god, I have to move. But I knew that I had to surf those urges and not give in order to rewire my brain. And honestly, this happened pretty quickly. It was very, very difficult the first couple days, but after about a week or so, eating actually became easier, and I became so much more relaxed around eating because it didn't have this condition. I didn't feel, as soon as I was eating, I didn't feel like, oh my god, how am I going to burn this off? Like, I could eat without worrying about what I was going to do afterwards, or if I had deserved it. I could just eat and fully enjoy. So that's just proof that even though it's very hard in the beginning, it will get easier. Just like anything in life, the more you practice, the easier it gets. And the fact that it did become easier actually makes a lot of sense from a biological perspective, because if you are resting, and just eating, and you're eating enough food, it signals to your body that you've reached the abundant lands and that you're not migrating. Well, this video is getting very long, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Please give it a huge thumbs up if you did like this video, and if you are new here, subscribe to my channel, hit that bell notification so you never miss a new video from me. Also, comment what your biggest takeaway was, because I just love hearing your guys' feedback and what you want to see more of. And also feel free to always DM me on Instagram with any topic requests. I also now offer one-on-one coaching, so if you want to dive deep into all things recovery and how you can heal your relationship with food, I offer a 100% individualized approach just for you, so you can click the link in the description below for that. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye!